at how we could model many-to-many using Mongo. Right? So here we have an example of a many-to-many relationship, enrollments, where you have a many-to-many between students and sections. Right? Now, in a relational database, you only have one choice. Right? You have to have a mapping table in between, right, that has foreign keys referencing the other two records that are related to one another. Yes? If you have one student enrolled in many sections, then you'll have that many records in the enrollment table saying that, hey, that student is enrolled in these sections. Right? And you have those 2 or 3 records pointing to the foreign key of the student that is enrolled in these 3 or 4 sections, 3 different records in the section side, right? Or vice versa. The section, if you want to know all the students that are enrolled in the section, you can join it against the enrollment and say, hey, give me all the students that are in this particular section, and then you retrieve all the students that are related. Yes? That's the only choice in a relational database. Now, in a non-relational database, right, you have other choices of how to model this relationship, right? Because it's an object, right? So you have all the possibilities that objects allow you to have, right? They can be complex data types, right? It's not just the value of a foreign key referencing to a primary key. You can store an actual complex data type inside of the field. So you could use the classical way to implement it. You could have an enrollment collection whose fields, right, can refer to the primary keys of the records that are involved. Right? So we could still implement it the way relational database is implemented. Yes? We could have an enrollment collection where each document refers to the student and the section. Right? Okay, so this would be the only implementation in relational databases. We could still do that in a non-relational database in Mongo. That's still an option, right? Not that you want to do that, maybe, right? It depends. Or the alternative here is to not even have the enrollment table, right? Or the enrollment collection. Yes? Instead, the sections, right? The sections can be an array, right? And that array can have all the primary keys that particular student is enrolled in. Right? The student is enrolled in all these sections. Right? So from the point of view of this particular student, these are all the sections that this student is enrolled in. Yes? Okay. Or, looking at it from the section's point of view, the sections can have, and the students can have an array of all the primary keys or foreign keys, right, of the IDs of all the students that are enrolled in that section. Make sense? Right? Now, this brings a challenge, though. Right? This brings a challenge. Now, and it depends on the use cases of what is it that you are actually implementing in the user interface, or however you're presenting this, how the user wants to use this, right? It might be that they only want to consume it looking at it from one way or the other. Even though it's a many-to-many, it might be that they only want to consume it one way or the other, not necessarily both ways. Yes. The challenge of doing it this way is that there is redundancy here, right? For this particular student, it will be pointing to these sections, and it would be an inconsistency that particular section would not contain that student, right, pointing to the student that says that they're enrolled in this section. Yes, right. So if you're going to update, maybe a student is unenrolling from a section, or maybe a new student is enrolling into the section, you would have to do 2 updates. Right? You would have to do the update into the student section, and you would also have to update the students in the section. You see that? That typically is it's not desirable, right? Whenever we have to update in 2 different places, right, we have to be careful, right? It's very, very easy to either forget, inadvertently, or we were able, maybe there was a transaction, maybe there was a some failure where we were able to update one of the records but not the other one, right? So it's very easy to run into an inconsistency, right? Whenever we need to update 2 different records or 2 different documents at the same time. Yes.
So is it possible to have triggers like we have in SQL, which
Yes, but it would be at the application level. Yeah, at the application level, exactly, right? And you would you would create a transaction, right, at the application level where either they're both updated, right, or none of them are, right? And that you would not, it would be like trying to transfer money from one account into the other, and I was able to withdraw, but I was never able to deposit. Well, so somewhere the money got lost, right, between the withdrawal and the deposit. Yes, we never want that to happen. We don't want that inconsistency. So yes, there would be mechanisms to allow you to do that. Nevertheless, it's a design decision that you would oftentimes try to avoid, right, unless absolutely necessary. So if you look at this implementation, the classical implementation is to have something in the middle, right, that references the other two documents, right, where the enrollment here we have student 1, and student 1 is enrolled in student 1 in section 1, student 2 is also in section 1. So we have section 1 has 2 students, whereas here we have student 3, right, enrolled in 2 different sections. Yes, many to many. Right? One student enrolled in many sections, and one section having many students, right? Both ways. So this would be actually a safer implementation, right? If you absolutely need to consume the data in both directions, right? This would be a safer implementation, right? If you still want to have the many to many, but it needs to be consumed only in one direction, then we can certainly just have one of these, but not necessarily both. Okay, where the sections are already listed here, which sections you are enrolled, right? Or you have the students listed in the sections that they're enrolled. Yes.
But even in that situation, right?
Yeah.
It's still kind of dangerous if you still pushing up on that document size. So I guess we have to.
Oh, the size, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, but these would be IDs, right? These would not be embedded documents. So it's a little safer. Also, every time you update this, right, there's also the re-indexing, right? That's which is oftentimes non-desirable. Every time you update a document, you're forcing the Mongo to re-index these kinds of things. So you would also try to minimize the updates. Well, same thing in relational databases as well, right? So ideally, you would as much as possible these would be read-only. As much as possible, where you would minimize the number of updates to these documents. But yeah, no, I was just pointing out here is that you have more options available that you would not have available in the relational world. Okay, because these are objects, right? These are not flat tables. Okay, so here's an example of an enrollment where we are inserting 2 IDs for section and student, and presumably these would be the unique identifiers of those records that already exist. Okay? Or, right, if we're implementing the students pointing to the sections, instead what you would do is that, right, you would have this redundancy, right, where you're storing the same information twice. Right, the students knowing about the section and the sections knowing about the students, right? That if you update one, you're going to have to update the other, right? So there's a redundancy. So here's one where we're saying that this particular student, right, has these sections. Notice the section is an array. See that? It has an array of the ID of the section that it belongs, that is they're enrolled in. And we can add an additional, if they additionally enroll in a different section, they can push, right? They can push, since section is an array, I can modify that array, right, and push an additional string into the sections, right? Add an additional ID in there, right? Okay. So here's I'm enrolling a different student in a different section, and then I am enrolling them in an additional section as well.